Part 11. Ethics, Aesthetics, and Philosophical Truth. For Babbitt, questions of reality are ultimately settled on non-intellectual grounds, through a turning of the personality. Reality becomes known to man most fundamentally through the exercise of higher will, which also manifests itself in imagination. Given the epistemological significance of Babbitt's ethics and of his understanding of the interplay of will and imagination, it is unfortunate that he does not more fully explore the nature and role of reason. Except for some passing remarks and merely implicit assumptions that suggest another possibility, he means by reason pragmatic and analytical rationality. He is acutely aware that this kind of rationality cannot faithfully articulate central facts of human existence, although these are known to man in the immediate experience, and he ordinarily assumes this kind of reasoning to be the only kind available. And if you go back to page 11 of the introduction, we can go back to the weaknesses of Babbitt's understanding of reason, so to speak, as it relates to the imagination and its ability to prove things and prove realities. In practice, Babbitt shows otherwise. Let me back this up. Babbitt ordinarily assumes that this kind of reasoning is the only kind of reasoning available, that rationalistic, analytic, pragmatic faculty. In practice, however, Babbitt shows otherwise. His books are full of theoretical accounts of life, and without saying so, he takes it for granted that they do not suffer from the weaknesses for which he criticizes pragmatic rationality. Since his scholarly observations are not just intuitions, but are philosophical statements about experience, they are obviously based on reasoning of some non-pragmatic type. Unfortunately, Babbitt never inquires very deeply into the epistemological basis for his own many concepts, distinctions, and definitions. He could have benefited greatly from Croce's theory of knowledge. The latter is similar to Babbitt's own in important respects, but it contains a philosophical logic without counterpart in Babbitt's work. Croce demonstrates that a reason exists that does not reify, simplify, or otherwise distort reality of which man has direct awareness. On the contrary, genuinely philosophical rationality is actual experience in conceptual, self-conscious form. Philosophy is historical in the sense that it takes cognitive, theoretical account of what is already in experience. Croce's notion of philosophical reason is thus a natural supplement to Babbitt. In its emphasis on the historical nature of philosophy, it accommodates Babbitt's stress on the need to rely on experiential evidence. More generally, Croce's dialectical understanding of life, including philosophical reason itself, is largely in accord with Babbitt's theme of dualism. Although it is not possible to pursue the subject here, it should be briefly indicated that Babbitt and Croce are close to each other in regarding practical action as anchoring human life in reality. Croce adds and systematically explains what Babbitt does not explicitly say, but always implies, that philosophy's criterion of reality is that something experienced belongs to the world of human action, as distinguished from mere imagination. Man's sense of reality resides in the ability to distinguish between will realized in practical action and will remaining in the form of unrealized desire, more or less transfigured in the imagination. Babbitt emphasizes that while the intuitions of art do not belong to the historical world in which human beings act, they can more or less be attuned to the real world. Although the insights of art are a different kind than historical knowledge, art's most powerful visions tend to permeate man's outlook on the world in general. Babbitt's analysis of that influence is an original contribution to aesthetics and the philosophy of knowledge. He shows that we see the world, including historical reality, in large part through the eyes of imaginative masterminds who direct and sharpen our sensibilities. But only poets who know the actual terms of life, as known in experience ordered by the ethical will, can impart a deepened sense of reality through their art. Poets whose imaginations are insufficiently anchored in moral experience can draw us into dangerous illusions and resulting suffering. Art is, for Babbitt, an integral part of life and a powerful influence on its direction. Nothing can be more important to the welfare of human society than its members can distinguish between visions that are merely enthralling and ones that are enthralling and rooted in reality. Babbitt's extensive work on ethics and aesthetics provides the criteria for discriminating. Part 12, Babbitt's Enduring Relevance. Babbitt's work identifies and carefully examines elements of moral and cultural decline within Western civilization. It also specifies appropriate remedies. In his first book, Babbitt warns of a, quote, lapse into moral impressionism, unquote, and a superficial belief in progress. He welcomes the advance of natural science, but finds it ominous that so many people, especially in the United States, are blinded by the success of science to, quote, the multiplying symptoms of some serious and perhaps fatal one-sidedness in our civilization, unquote. In his book of 1908, Babbitt sums up the entire nature and extent of the decline of the American society in the imagery of a personal reminiscence. And here's that little tale. A few years ago, I was walking one Sunday evening along a country road in a remote part of New England, and on passing a farmhouse saw through the window the members of the family around the lighted lamp, each one bending over a section of a yellow journal. I reflected that not many years before, the Sunday reading of a family of this kind would have been of the Bible. To progress from the Bible to the comic supplement would seem a progress from religious restraint to a mixture of anarchy and idiocy. The further social deterioration anticipated by Babbitt has come about much as he is the further social deterioration anticipated by Babbitt has come about much as he expected. If some worrisome social trends are to be expected in the best of times, the signs of decay in the Western world at the end of the 20th century are myriad and pervasive. Self-indulgence, irresponsibility, lack of discipline, decline of family life, crime and other dishonesty, political opportunism, and a demagoguery, obtrusive commercialism, financial manipulation, indiscriminate deficit spending and borrowing, political and economic corruption, drug abuse, sexual promiscuity, sexually transmitted diseases, academic superficiality, ideologizing, which is a great word that guys like myself who are constantly attacking ideology, in the Kirkian sense of it, ideologizing, I guess is the best way to say that, ideologizing, and intolerance, low and sinking educational standards, religious sentimentalism, vulgarity, crudity, and debauchery in art and entertainment, abuse of nature. In their glaring and epidemic proportions, these phenomena all point in the same direction. In spite of the multiplying evidence of a precipitous decline of civilization, many, especially in the United States, hail the present-day Western democracy as a model and want to bestow it upon all of humanity. Like earlier calls, and this is written in 1991, so this is surely a shot across the bow of Francis Fukuyama's The End of History. Our Constitution is not for export. Like earlier calls to help mankind, these benevolent-sounding sentiments adorn a sometimes cynical grasp for power. But the willingness to excuse, deny, or ignore decay and danger visible on all sides also suggests a slipping hold on reality. The appeal to the public imagination of these self-congratulatory endorsements of democracy is one of the many indications that large numbers of people in the Western world are succumbing to a combination of escapism and infantilism. This is the concept that Roger Scruton says so eloquently, that the modern mass man has grown into immaturity. It is hard to avoid the thought that much of this development in America and Western world could have been averted if Babbitt's thought had been more widely absorbed and heeded. In comparison with Babbitt's books, virtually all of today's writings about crisis of education and culture looks rather shallow and groping. The same deterioration of standards that makes Babbitt's work a badly needed corrective limits the number of individuals capable of absorbing ideas at his level. If you made it this far in the tape, congratulations. You're one of the types of people that Claes is talking about here. And yet, the nature and import of today's festering social problems cannot really be understood unless the issues he raises are fully explained. Babbitt's work should finally be studied with the care it requires and deserves, though some of the particular illustrations in this book may pertain more to his own lifetime than to ours. His philosophy of civilization and his diagnoses and prescriptions have a striking contemporaneity. They also have acquired an acute urgency. Babbitt's understanding of the relationship between qualities of imagination and the qualities of will offers a new and illuminating perspective on the erosion of civilization and how it might be reversed. His ethical ideas provide an alternative, to moral subjectivism and relativism, but without setting up some rigid absolutism, and without denying the legitimate claims of individuality and the need for creative adjustment to circumstance. In a period of moral and religious pluralism, in which there is also a reluctance to take ideas on authority, his understanding of the humanistic and the religious manifestations of the higher will has special strength of being ecumenical and based upon experiential evidence. Babbitt's analysis of sentimental humanitarianism and scientific naturalism concerns phenomena that are no less prominent and powerful today than when Babbitt first formulated his critique of them. According to Babbitt, human beings are moved chiefly by the interplay of will and imagination. Theoretical abstractions play a secondary role. To reorient Western society, he contends, it is necessary, first of all, to expose the morally conceited and decadent imagination that lies behind so much of modern moral and cultural life. The ethical will and imagination need to be recovered. Babbitt's ethical aesthetic doctrine demonstrates that in the pursuit of reality, formal intellectual ability divorced from ethical